empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We have a huge returnee. We have Matt Jones coming back. We have a big show for you guys. We're going to talk about some of the early enrollees and what their roles could look like early on during winter conditioning, spring ball. Kind of take you behind the scenes as to what their process looks like when these kids come in from high school. And we're going to break down who we think could be some breakout guys during spring from that young group. So we really appreciate you guys, as always, tuning in tonight. A fantastic show planned. We're going to break down some tape of some of these guys, show how they fit into Ohio State's scheme and offense. And I'm just excited because, I mean, you guys have to understand, getting Matt Jones back is humongous for our offensive line. He'll likely be our center this year. I think that the offensive line is going to be really good this year, despite what naysayers may think. I think we're going to be good, and our skill is going to be the best in the country. So you mix all that together. Buckeyes are preseason number 2 as of right now. They're way too early poll on ESPN. So a lot to be excited about, Buckeye Nation. I know that it was in the season that we loved with not winning the Big Ten and obviously the loss to Georgia. But guys, we are going to be really good next year. So buckle up, get ready, and get on BuckeyeScoop.com. With that being said, as always, we're very thankful for you guys. We're grateful for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in and making us part of your night. We appreciate you guys, as always. To get those questions fired up in the chat, comment down below who is your breakout star for spring, because there's going to be a lot of new names, a lot of new faces. Quarterback derby is going to be hot. It's going to be crazy. Really excited about it. So I think you guys are going to be wanting to be tuned into BuckeyeScoop.com because it's going to be wild. Click like. It's a huge help for us. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening to the audio format. And also subscribe to this. If you haven't subscribed, that is huge for us. If you guys do this, so click the little subscribe button. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys in that chat. Get that fired up. We're going to be taking questions. That being said, bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you?
Doing great. It's like Christmas, opening up my presents and finding Matt Jones under the tree. You know, it was kind of fun. I would say it was a surprise, but we kind of had an inkling that was going to happen. Hated to lose Luke Whippler. Saw people kind of lining up on the ledge and ready to jump off, and then Matt Jones comes and everybody's happy again. So I'm happy. We're happy. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, I think that Luke can give us a similar level of production. You know, Matt Jones was second team All Big Ten this year. He'll likely be a preseason All Big Ten center guard. I think that if I'm Justin Fry, I'm playing him at center to start off in spring, make him the leader of the offensive line. Again, I project Donnie to be the left tackle. I think Fryer will be fantastic at right tackle. I really liked his tape. The one game that he started in place of DeWand was really good. And the people that I talked to in the WAC think he's a guy that could really break out just because he's so athletic. He's much more athletic than DeWand. He's not as big. He's not as big and scary as intimidating as DeWand, but he does a lot of stuff just as good, if not better. He's just as good in the pass protection game. He's better at getting to the second level in the running game. You know, I think he can get better as a run blocker. Just footwork. A lot of it's just effort and finishing. And I'm not saying he's not a big effort guy, because he really works hard, and he really has had a nice role the last 2 years as the goal line tight end. But I think he can take a step now that there's a spot open. And, it's kind of like the quarterback position, I think, with Justin Fry. When you have these guys competing and there's competition, and, these guys have been kind of waiting their turn. And, now it's like the padlocks open up for like the horses in Kentucky Derby, and now it's a race to see who can win the starting spot. And that, I'm telling you, guys sharpen their pencils a little bit more when they realize that, hey, I have a real chance to start. I don't have Paris in front of me anymore. I don't have DeWand in front of me anymore. I don't have Nick Petit in front of me anymore. I don't have Luke Whippler in front of me. There's wide open spots, outside of Matt and Donnie, and Ink. Those guys will both be starters, obviously. And then, Josh Fryer, I think in pencil's a starter. But you have two spots that it's just like, you imagine Enoch made a start last year. I think he'd be, the front runner if they had a spring practice today. I think he would fill in likely at right guard. Left guard, I mean, there's just a ton of guys that'll get shots in there. Tiger ran there last year. There's some guys that, really have a shot. Jacob James could go to center, put Matt at guard, at left or right guard. Just kind of figure out, the chemistry of the line, what works best, what's your best five. And, this is why Justin Fry gets paid the big bucks, because this is going to be a big time rebuild. But it's part of when you recruit well and you develop well, and guys go pro early. I mean, Paris went to the league; is going to be a top 10 pick. Luke Whippler is probably going to be maybe a late first to a second round pick. DeJuan probably second, third round pick. That's part of it, man. When you bring in these good kids and you develop them quickly, then they're going to be able to go pro, which is what all these guys' goals are. So, Nevada, your thoughts on what Matt Jones returning means to the offensive line and to Ohio State's 2023 team in general?
Well, I just think it means you have more depth. You have more depth in the line. I actually like the line without knowing that Matt Jones was coming back. Obviously, with Matt Jones coming back, you've got literally 4 guys of the 5 that are going to start, more than likely that have started before at Ohio State. So you returned once again one of the best lines in college football, lots of experience. The competition for that 5th spot is going to be absolutely fierce, and you've got guys all the way ranging from guys that have been in the program to incoming freshmen to early enrollees that all may throw their hat in the ring for that spot. So no, I couldn't be more excited about 2023. And I just think it answers one of the questions. We still have some questions on the defensive side, but offensively, when you go down the spots, quarterback, I'm just going to assume that Dave's going to do what we've always done. Wide receiver room, best in college football. Running back room, best we've ever had. Offensive line, one of the best in college football. Tight ends, fantastic. I mean, we check every box. We're going to be able to do anything you want offensively. We're maybe one elite defensive back away from having a lockdown defense. So no, lots to be excited about, and this definitely answered a little bit of questions and hopefully reduce some people's anxiety that we're ready to jump off the cliff when Luke Whippler left.
Yeah, I like you said, I think that we're going to be able to outscore everybody we play. We need Denzel to bounce back at corner. Denzel Burke, he had a poor season. He needs to bounce back big time. I mean, he really, it was weird. He started off as a true freshman and really was like a guy that you're like, oh, that guy's going to be a 3-and-out first round guy. And then he just hasn't been the same guy. And I don't know what the reason is. I think he needs to go back to wearing number 29 and get rid of number 10. You got to see if Jordan Hancock can live up to his billing. Again, like you said, we're a dominant DB away from being really good on defense. If we project that Tommy Eichenberg comes back, which if you asked me today what I thought was going to happen, I mean, I was correct on Luke Whippler leaving. I was correct on Matt Jones. I think Tommy is going to come back. I do think he's truly on the fence right now. I checked with some really good sources on that one. He is on the fence, but if I'm Tommy, man, I come back, captain again, preseason All-American, favorite for the butt kiss, a lot of hype, a lot of, he could just rake in the awards, get his Buckeye tree. He didn't hit first team All-American this year. He had second team, I think, on every single team, which is amazing. That he didn't make first on a single one, but he's going to have the hype train rolling, which he did not have this year. So I think it'd be really spectacular for him to come back and lead that defense with that good set of juniors up front on the D line. And potentially Lathan Ransom coming back as well. I think Lathan is a guy that wants to get these last 2 games back. He did not play well his last 2 games. And he really had an All-American type season up until Michigan, really Maryland, Michigan, and Georgia. But he was balling all season. He was a guy that, and he still made some second team, third team All-American lists. So again, you harvest that crop of juniors and seniors that took off, and you kind of project who's going to be preseason All Big Ten, preseason All-American. I could see, we could have 6, 7, 8 guys that are getting mentioned for preseason All-American potentially. And I think that, on All Big Ten, I think we'll dominate that list as well. Nevada, we were going to talk a little bit about the early enrollees. There was a cast of kids that showed up, 3 offensive linemen, which is huge. Receivers. Unfortunately, Brandon Innes was not able to enroll early. There's an issue. American Heritage does not allow their players to leave campus a semester early, double up in English credit. So that was unfortunate. I think they're actually working on a potential waiver where he could come up and be a part of the team, workouts, meetings, so that he doesn't fall behind. Because I think for a lot of these guys, especially guys that are really, really high-level skill guys, they want to get in as early as possible. learn the offense, learn the skill, learn the routes, develop chemistry with the quarterbacks, and just get ready to roll. Because I think skill guys can play a lot earlier than O-line guys typically. But it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of role he has when he gets here in the summer. Again, I don't think it's a huge deal. Ted Ginn didn't show up until August, and he was dominant from Jump Street. So if you got it, you got it. But we got some other guys to talk about. Nevada, who are some of the guys you're excited about that have enrolled early and are already on campus at Ohio State that should be high school seniors?
Well, I'm going to go with the Rogers boys. A couple of wide receivers that people aren't talking about. Noah Rogers from North Carolina and Bryson Rogers from Florida. I love their tape, and I don't know how many people have had a chance to go watch these kids play. But I think we get caught up a lot in Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate, inappropriately so. But I'm telling you, Noah Rogers and Bryson Rogers, both terrific players. Both really, really, really excited about that, and also excited about the fact that a little factoid that we got a kid from Lakota East and a kid from Lakota West this year, all in the same year, which is really I'm not sure if that's ever happened before in the history of Ohio State, but we got the Lakota boys, Austin Searwold and Malik Hartford. So no, I think I like the early enrollees. I think they're coming in with the objective of helping a loaded Ohio State team compete in 2023. And you got some guys at some key spots that could see immediate action, and that's always exciting. And this era of the portal and transfers and things like that, the early enrollees are really vital to kind of your continuity on your team, and really for me it kind of enhances even your signing, because a signing is one thing that shows up in the fall as opposed to a signing that can show up in January. I think those January kids have just got such a huge edge up on them. Coming in, obviously, the kid like a Ted Ginn can come right in and make a play, but these early enrollees really have a leg up, and getting 12 of them in, big things for Ohio State in 2023.
Yeah, I totally agree. So this is Bryson's film. I had to double check if it was Bryson or Noah. But yeah, this is Bryson Rogers. Again, big kid, productive kid. I think that, you do have a slight edge when you can come in early. Yes, there's a lot of people in chat asking, is Court Williams back? I don't believe he's going anywhere. I didn't see him hit the portal or anything. He's definitely back. Guys, keep these questions coming. I'm scanning our YouTube right now to get some questions on the show. Yeah, Court Williams is back again. He was injured for much of the year. When he was healthy, he didn't really play, not really productive. So great kid, captain, the whole shebang, but not a productive player thus far. That can always change, but you've got really good players in front of you, and you've got Seal, Tommy. If he's a linebacker, if he's the hybrid safety, is he athletic enough to do it? I don't know. He looks the part. He's a big physical kid, but can he run well enough to cover in Jim Knowles' nickel defense? I call it 4-2-5 nickel, whatever, 3 safety shebang whiz. Carrot stick defense, whatever. Great question here, Nevada. Why hasn't CJ Stroud declared for the draft yet? I don't think there's anything to that, but I'd love your take on that, Nevada.
Well, I think they're doing this sequentially. I think they're kind of letting everybody kind of have their moment, not stepping on it, and it would make sense that CJ would be near the end of the pack or at the very end of the pack, given he's the highest profile guy. There's some chatter that he may be considering, coming back with a big, Pepsi or Dr. Pepper deal and endorsements and NIL. And, all I'd say about that is I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anything that gives that credibility. Having said that, in the age of NIL, that went from the probability of 0 to maybe a probability of 0.5 because you can take money. So if there ever was a time that something like that crazy would happen, it would happen in the NIL era. But I haven't heard anything that gives any validity to that. But that certainly would be a seismic. That would make the Chris Olave return, which I thought was one of the more stunning of all time, look like a tremor by comparison.
Now, obviously that would be maybe that would easily be the most shocking return in Ohio State history, and it wouldn't even be close because. Given CJ how he played against Georgia, his stock, likely top 5 to 10 pick, even if he flubs the combine and the pro day, you turn on that Georgia tape against that defense and the way he shredded them, you almost can't come back. But if he would, it'd be fantastic. Obviously, it'd make us probably we'd be the number one team in the nation, obviously, preseason. If we got the Heisman front runner back, he'd have a lot to play for. But I'm not going to hope against hope. And even if he does, or excuse me, if he doesn't come back, with Ryan at the helm, with Todd Finch, Corey Dennis in that quarterback room, I just don't care who plays quarterback, because we've literally had the first team all Big Ten quarterback every year since 2012. So it's been like 10, 11 straight years of first team all Big Ten quarterback being the Ohio State quarterback. So at this point, if Devin Brown or Kyle McCord win that job, I fully expect them to be first team all Big Ten next year, just because when you're throwing to Emeka and Marvin, like, it's not that hard. And then you bring in Julian, Xavier Johnson comes back, Cade Stover. We have the greatest running back room in Ohio State history with Trey, Mayan, Chip, Evan Pryor, Dallin Hay. I mean, it literally is absolutely insane. I have no idea. I mean, you put a gun to my head, there's no way all those guys are there after spring ball. Like, somebody has to probably go. Because, again, like, you've got like 6 running backs that could start at 80% of the schools in the country. So, there's just a lot of mouths to feed on that offense. And that's, that's part of good recruiting. It's part of good development, is that you got all these guys that can play and want to play. So, Nevada, I mean, have you seen a better set of skill between receivers, tight ends, and running backs in your lifetime at Ohio State?
No, I haven't. But you made a really important point, and I think it's really important for people to hear and listen and remember is, when you have an embarrassment of riches like this, and you have immediate or pretty much on-demand transfer and portal and things like that, you can't help think that some guys are going to leave. So that's not being a doomsayer. That's not being Mr. Negative. That's just being realistic. Of, hey, when you have that many guys and that many mouths to feed, it's going to be difficult to keep everybody around and keep everybody happy in a situation like that. So I think as a fan, you got to buckle up for that. You got to be ready for it. But no, to answer your question point blank, I've never seen a better group, top to bottom. Obviously the only thing we're missing is an experienced trigger man. We know we got guys, and we've got Devin Brown and Kyle McCord, who couldn't be more blue chip when we recruited them, but we just haven't seen them play enough to know what they can do exactly. But if they're even barely, if they're even Stetson Bennett capable for Ohio State, we're going to win a lot of football games and score a lot of points, and it's going to be a very prolific offense in 2023.
I totally agree. I just think that when you've got that kind of talent, and again, we've got our opening schedule for the first 3 games before Notre Dame is about as soft as I've ever seen in my life at Ohio State. So you're gonna have 3 scrimmages to get these guys ready, get them humming, get the O-line coordinated. I think you'll be able to roll some guys through on the O-line early in the game to give guys some at bats that maybe you're not going to be as tight, and say, no, we're only going to play these 5 guys. If you want to say, hey, we used to do that sometimes back in the day where there was a competition at guard. Hey, okay, you're going in the 3rd series of the game, so stay ready, be ready, whatever. So I think it's going to be real interesting. But yeah, with the quarterbacks, I imagine they both play the first game. I imagine there's some sort of rotation to kind of get them both game ready. Because I mean, you're playing like Youngstown State. You're just playing like an awful start to the season. And that's great, because like I would not want to open up with Notre Dame this year, especially now that they have the new quarterback from Wake Forest. But after 3 games, I think we're going to be a much different team. These guys that are making first career starts, and it's their first time being the man, and not just being like a fill-in guy like Josh Fryer was last year when DeJuan got hurt. I think it makes a huge difference in the confidence levels and the overall experience, because they're going to go to Notre Dame. It's going to be game 4. And you already have your routine down pat. You're still gonna have anxiety because that's gonna be the first big game that they've played in. But at the same token, it's not their first career start, and they're not going to be seeing what I'm sure will be a very good defensive front from Notre Dame. They lost Isaiah Foskey. He declared for the draft, thank God, because he was really good. They actually lost a couple guys up front for the draft, so they'll be green too. It's not like we're the only school in the country that loses guys on offense and defense. I mean, everybody's got to deal with a rebuild. It's like I talked to you earlier, Nevada. The team that set the record last year for most NFL draft picks with 15 just a year later goes 15-0 and wins the national championship for the second time. One of the first repeat team since 11-12 Alabama. So, I think that, where there's a will, there's a way. When guys go pro early, it creates opportunity that maybe guys weren't expecting. Now, with Paris, everybody in the universe knew that he was going to go pro after 3 years. I mean, he graduated in 3 years, first team All-American, did a fantastic job. There are a lot of, not speculation. I mean, there's like an 80% chance after this year DeJuan was going to go pro. Luke Whippler, somewhat of a surprise as a redshirt sophomore going pro, but at the same token, people in the know, like I've been saying for 2 months that Luke was going to go pro. I had a really good source on that one, and it didn't surprise me at all. But, Matt Jones coming back for year 6, I think is really huge for the line because, Matt's got a chance to come back and be the guy. He gets a chance to dominate, second year starting, get his body right. He was dinged up at the end of the year. He was on crutches at the end of the Maryland game. Michigan game, he had to miss, which really hurt us because, I thought Enoch and Josh did not play as well in interior at right guard. I think Josh is a much better tackle than guard, in my opinion. I think he's a taller, longer guy. He's a great athlete, but he's not as stumpy and stout as a good guard that can kind of root hog defensive tackles out. But I think that getting those guys all back is going to be huge. Like Matt coming back is one of those things where it's like signing a 5-star offensive lineman. When you get a 6-year guy who's going to be 24 years old and he's a man among boys, like that's great. Cause that COVID year, I mean, take full advantage of it, go start your master's degree, go win the Remington, go be first team all Big Ten and go do it. There's no reason you can't. I know he's a great center. I mean, there were guys, you got to remember Matt Jones is probably the last guy on the team that started the Alabama national championship game. He started that game. We were short a guy, so he had to play against Bama. We got waxed that night, but so he'd been around the block for a long time. Big game starting experience, and I think it's a huge ad for us. I'm going to switch to Noah Rogers. I'm going to switch this real quick. Nevada. Talk to me a little bit about some of the early enrollees, some of the history of it. Obviously Maurice Claret's one of he was the kind of the pioneer of it, but how big of an edge is it for these guys to get to enroll in January for the semester?
No, it's big, and look, it's big for all the obvious reasons because you learn system, you learn terminology, you get acclimated to school, you learn where the dorms are, you learn how to navigate the Woody Hayes Center. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why it makes sense from that standpoint. And from Ohio State standpoint, you got these kids because these kids have actually signed and they're actually on the campus and they're actually there. So there's like a surety issue as well. I want to go back to one of the things that we were talking about earlier. We're talking about the C.J. Stroud thing. Like say you have to remember it's always the law of unintended consequences. So say C.J. Stroud came back. And then there was rejoicing in Ohio State land, and we had a parade, and we all this. and then what happens to Devin Brown and Kyle McCord in that situation? Did they both immediately transfer out? See ya. And now all of a sudden you're down to the kid from South Dakota is your only backup, your only quarterback for next year. So like all these things, there's always a push and pull and things like that, and that's why offensive line always looks dire because we've talked about this many times, but you don't play guys like hockey lines on offensive line. An offensive line, you either play and start or you don't play at all. So you're going to have a lot of guys that just haven't seen any action that are being forced into play. We're benefit, we've got 4 guys that have started, but, Luke Whippler had a chance. Ohio State centers are coveted by the NFL right now, and he's being told he's going to be one of the top centers taken off the board. You think it's 1, 2. I think it'll be lower than that. I think it'll probably be 3 to 5. But he's going to get paid, and he's going to end up in a great spot. He's going to have a chance to start for somebody and make a lot of money. So, but it just opens up a door for somebody else. But I was just thinking about that C.J. Stroud thing. I'm like, wow, that would be unbelievable. He comes back, and we do that, and then all of a sudden our other quarterbacks go out the door, and also we have a quarterback issue all of a sudden. So,
well, that's the funny thing is no matter what happens, I mean, no one expects him to actually come back, but people are going to be upset regardless. So like, oh no, he came back. Now we lost Devin Brown on a court because they transferred to Tulsa and Pitt or USC or somewhere. So it's like, it's always funny because you can't win. Because imagine if Paris and DeJuan came back. Guess what? Josh Ryer's probably hitting the portal. You know, I mean, there's going to be guys like taking off because that's how modern college football is. Like, why did we lose Ryan Jacoby, who's going to start at tackle for Pitt and probably would be starting for tackle for us this year because they moved DeJuan to tackle. You know, so he didn't really have a chance to compete 2 years ago. So he flat out took off, and you know, he started training camp at Ohio State in 2021 and transferred to Pitt during camp, and that same year ended up starting games for Pitt. You know, so like a few months later, he started for the Pitt Panthers at right tackle. So, you know, it's just, I don't know. Like you can't, you know, you're never going to have depth at some positions, especially offensive line, because, you know, on the offensive line, when you don't rotate guys like you do on D-line and running back and receiver, like guys want to go play. Like guys are going to transfer out. They're going to want to go somewhere they can start, be guaranteed to start. And that's just, you're seeing it all across the country. Like Alabama lost Tommy Brockermeyer, who's the number two. He was the number 2 player in his entire class last year, 5-star tackle. He still hasn't landed anywhere, but that's a kid that, you know, Alabama fans are probably popping champagne when he signed there. And then, you know, he left. Same with Keata Goodwin, you know, he took off from Kentucky. You know, Ryan Day basically told that kid to F off. And, you know, when we didn't get him, everybody said, well, Greg Sudoir is fat and lazy and can't recruit or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that might be true, but the head coach told the kid to F off. So, like, I mean, what do you expect the O-line coach to do when the head coach doesn't want the guy anymore? Because the kid was a game player, kind of a head case, and, you know, he's already in the portal from Kentucky. So, you know, sometimes when we don't get kids, you got to take a deep breath and be like, okay, let's see how this plays out with this kid. Let's see if he really turns into Jonathan Ogden or Tony Baselli or whatever, or if he just turns into some turd that never really amounts to anything. So, but no, I like the O-line class. I think Josh Padilla could be next in line at center. I love that kid. I think he's a tough kid, nose to the grindstone, not a big, you know, social media game player type kid. Like he's committed and done and didn't visit any other schools and locked down. You know, I think Austin Sarveld, same way. You know, he's a kid that he's got to prove he can pass block. But again, when these kids come from high school, they all have to prove they can pass block because none of them have ever seen anything like the guys you're going to see at Ohio State at defensive tackle and defensive end. Because, you know, in high school, you might play against one guy that's even a Big Ten type recruit, especially from Ohio, you know, on the entire schedule. But, you know, when you're at Ohio State, you see national level kids from the South that are just fantastic. You know, JT, there's nothing like JT Tuimoloau in Ohio high school football right now. So, you have Jack Sawyer, obviously, you know, Ty Leak, Mike Hall. Those are just different levels. Like when those guys step into the one-on-one pass pro drill versus those guys, you know, you better eat your Wheaties because they're going to be coming for you. So, Nevada, when we start spring ball, who do you like to break out? Oh, this is a great one right here. This is another one. A quick question: what should we expect from Nevada's boy Jaden Ballard next year? And I was like, well, for one, I heard he was really good in bowl practice and they had all these whiz bang plays for him. And obviously when push came to shove, they left them all on the cutting room floor and they went with Xavier Johnson as their 4th guy. But yeah, this is a make or break year for Jaden. This is really, I think this spring, especially with Xavier Johnson coming back, is a make or break year for Jaden. Cause like, what's his role going to be now that X is back, Julian's back. And then obviously you've got Emeka, Marvin, Cade Stover comes back. Like that's a lot of targets right there, a lot of mouths to feed. And Jaden, as of right now, is no better than the 5th guy. And you've got guys like Ennis and Tate coming in this, you know, well, I mean, Tate's already here, and then Ennis is coming this summer. What do you project out of Jaden Ballard if he's even here?
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, look, they were featuring Jaden during the bowl, and you know, you always wonder when they do that. Are they trying to placate the kid? Are they trying to, you know, take him off of, you know, transfer watch? But I mean, they were designing stuff up for him. They were running him out there, you know, with regularity with the 1s and definitely with the 2s. I thought for sure he'd see some action, but you know, I thought the same thing, you know, with Styles. I thought with Sonny Styles, you know, they had him playing a ton. You know, him and Josh Proctor. Now, when that other tight end went down, they had him played for a few plays and they pulled him out of the game. So, I mean, Jaden Ballard, like you said, it's a big year for him. I mean, you've got Noah Rogers coming in. You got Bryson Rogers coming in. You got Carnell Tate. You got Brandon Ennis. You got Julian Fleming. You got Harrison. You got Ibuka. I mean, like you said, there's so many guys. He's either going to get good, he's going to get noticed, he's going to get playing time, or he's going to get gone. So it's just the sad reality of college football in 2023. But boy, I tell you what, they featured him a lot, and they liked him a lot, and they were feeding him a lot in bowl prep. So I have to believe he's going to be one of those guys that they're going to continue to go to in the spring and continue on. They're going to give him every opportunity in the fall to be the guy.
Yeah, and I mean it's again that initial transfer window is gonna close. Then after spring ball, it opens back up again, and there's gonna be movement again. There's gonna be kids that like Bryson Shaw took off. He gave the Jim Knowles thing a try, and he was repping. Went from being a starter to repping with the threes, and took off, went to SC. I think that there's guys that, frankly, it's kind of comical when you see some of the touches and some of the targets that go on in the spring game, because I think G. Scott got more targets in the spring game than I think he's had in his career at Ohio State. He had I swear to God, he had 8 targets and a bunch of catches, and he was the guy that had 1 foot out the door. Evan Pryor was a guy that was featured heavily, and I know for a fact he was looking potentially transferring. So it's always interesting to see how they feature these guys and kind of placate them. And it's a double-edged sword, because, the kids want to know how they're going to be used, so you use them. And then when they ball out, the tampering starts. Schools start calling these kids, hey, you're the 7th running back at Ohio State, but if you come here, you're going to be our starter, and you're going to get 20 touches a game. So, again, when guys leave, it's just part of the gig now. And again, I don't care when guys leave, because we usually have better guys in front of them. And I think depth is really an illusion now with college football and the way the portal is. I think that guys, you say, oh, we should have 6 tackles on the roster. I'm like, well, that's never going to happen again. You're never going to have 6 good tackles on the roster, because they want to go play. They want to go start somewhere. If they're not starting by year 2, they're out. And if there's a guy that's 1 year older than them and he might be starting for the next 2 years at left tackle, right tackle, they're out. So it's going to be fascinating to watch. It'll be interesting to see if we clear out any of these older offensive linemen that maybe just aren't cutting the mustard, and try to replace them with portal guys. I think we could have a big recruiting class next year, 2025, or a 25-man recruiting class next year to kind of fill this thing in. But yeah, it is the Wild West now, because again, these kids all want to play, especially at a position like quarterback, because the money is so tremendous in the National Football League. And you don't have to be at Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia to be drafted as a quarterback in the NFL. You can play at Wyoming, you can play at North Dakota State, you can play at, Delaware like Joe Flacco did, and they'll find you. If you're good, they'll find you. But you have to play somewhere. You can't just be, running scout team and holding a clipboard on Saturdays. You got to go be the man somewhere, and that's what's enticing for some of these kids. Nevada, as we get into winter conditioning, we've kind of got a reformulated coaching staff. I think Justin Fry is going to take a much heavier role in game planning and the running game. Obviously, Brian Hartline is going to be, hugely involved in the passing game. I don't believe, I know that Kirk Herbstreit said that Ryan Day is going to give up the play calling, but that's one of those things where I'll believe it when I see it, just because he literally just had the greatest play calling performance of his life against the Georgia Bulldogs in a game where everybody's like, wow, that was a majestic performance. And then you're going to hand it off to a guy that's never called plays before. I mean, I could see it. You're trying to groom Brian Hartline and help him progress in his career. But, if I'm Ryan Day and that's his bread and butter and that's his core competency, I could see maybe doing it, letting it go for a quarter or two, and then just grabbing the reins right back. But what are your thoughts on that, on Ryan potentially giving up the play calling duties?
Well, again, I think it's twofold. I think, one, it's not his decision. I think that's coming down from Gene Smith. And I think there's a lot of people at Ohio State that want Ryan to be more of an administrator, be more hands-on on the defense, be more hands-on on the special teams, and not be so quarterback and offensive, minded and centric. That's one. And two, it's not so much his desire to help Brian Hartline along in his career. It's keeping him. Brian Hartline realizes that he's not going to stay here if he's not allowed to expand his role in a meaningful way. And that means more than just adding the coordinator title to his resume or something like that. He wants to call plays. So I think there's a couple of forces that may drive Ryan. Will he go all the way and go full Monty and give it up completely? Probably not. But I think it's going to happen more than not. I would say that I'm more right 70-80% of the way there that he'll do it. I'll never think he'll be completely out of the play calling business, but I think there's a lot of legitimate reasons for it to happen.
How much of it has to do with maybe the defense being shaky the last two games, and maybe Ryan Day needs to spend more time in the defensive staff room to make sure that, whatever is going on over there. And again, there might not be anything going on over there, but if we can stop these guys the last two games, and we probably won the national championship game. Do you think that has something to do with why Gene Smith is having him give up the play calls? Because, with Urban, he never called the plays. So he could go back and forth between the staff rooms. And, when the defense had a terrible performance versus Indiana in 2012, we beat Indiana, I think it was like 52-49. So the Indiana Hoosiers scored 49 points on the Ohio State Buckeyes in Bloomington. Urban didn't spend a single minute in the offensive staff room that next week because we gave up so many points to Indiana. Do you think that is part of the motivation for Gene Smith to have Ryan Day, pass on the play calling duties?
Yeah, well, I think they want Ryan to become more of a full head coach, and right now Ryan's an offensive coordinator and he's a quarterback coach, but is he really the captain of the entire ship, or is he just the captain on the offensive side? Well, I think they want him to take a step back and take a more holistic view of the entire organization and do it. So no, I think this has been kind of the rap on Ryan since he came in. That he wasn't really a head coach; he was just more of an offensive guy. And I absolutely think there's a pressure on that they wanted to do it. So I think it started long before these last three games. I think they've been wanting to do it, but I think this kind of forced their hand.
Yeah, it's a great question from Mark Williams here. How much impact do you think Justin Fry has had? Paris Dewan, Whippler, all improved. Maybe we're overthinking the O-line concern. I'll take that initially. I think Paris Dewan and Whippler improved because, Paris moved to his natural position, left tackle. Dewan, obviously, I think that one thing you have to understand with these guys is, there's generally a pretty significant jump from your first year as a starter to a second year. I mean, I watched my 04 film, not very good. 05, I was much better. 06, I was even better. 07, I was, I had my career year, my best year. I think there's that natural progression. I think that these guys, when these guys are eyeballing the NFL and potentially jumping early, it's a huge motivator, and I didn't think those guys, I didn't think any of those guys were bad in 2000. I think that the interesting thing about the 2001 team is that we had to play like a supersonic version of Aiden Hutchinson. So that game magnified everything, and people say, oh, well, we blocked Michigan way better this year and blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, yeah, we didn't play Aiden Hutchinson. We didn't play Ojabo. Those guys were much better than any of the edge rushers we saw in the Big Ten all year. And they gave us major problems up in Ann Arbor. And you got to remember in that game in Ann Arbor, Dewan tapped out. He got hurt. So then you had to put Thayer at left tackle, put Nick Petit back at right tackle, kind of do the musical chair, something that we hadn't done all year. So, it wasn't our day. We walked into a fist fight, into a buzzsaw, and we got worked. But I think that Justin does a really good job. I think that, it's going to be interesting to see how we judge recruiting going forward, because I think that the biggest issue that we have with some of these, with some of the big time offensive linemen is that you got to pay them. We need the NIL budget to go get some of these guys. And it's I think that, the in-state guys will be good. But I think that you have to be at a different level of recruiter to be like a Brian Hartline where, these kids will come here for less NIL money. Cause again, it's not like these guys are coming here for nothing. There were 5 guys that signed with the foundation yesterday, including Carnell Tate, including Jelani Thurman, who I think is going to be an absolute superstar at tight end. Those guys all signed NIL deals yesterday. So they're all getting some money to come here early. But none of our offensive linemen were invited to that. So it's like, you know, when you want to go get a Samson Okunlola or some of these guys, like you got to cut a check. And that's like something where I think these collectives, you know, need to do their part, do their thing and keep grinding. But it'll be interesting to see how we judge the offensive tackle recruiting going forward. Because again, these guys, you know, they come at a price, and that's something that, you know, are they going to blame Justin Fry if we miss on a 5-star guy when it's really just a money thing, or is it going to be like the stud thing where we just blamed him for no matter what went wrong, it was always stud's fault? Even like again, like the Keanu Goodwin was the greatest one ever because he literally Ryan Day told the kid to go buzz off, and then when he committed to Kentucky, you know, it was like this tragedy by the offensive line coach, and he's just not a great recruiter and he's lazy. But like in reality, the head coach didn't want him. So what are you supposed to do? But Nevada, what do you think of Justin Fry's impact and the improvement on the offensive line? Which I think we were better. I think that's kind of overstated, and I think that's disrespectful to Nick Petit-Frere and Thayer because, you know, in 2021 we had to play guys out of position just because we were playing your best 5. So you had to play a 6'7" right guard who's a true sophomore. It was DeJuan's first year. Harry Miller goes into the year as a starting center, and he goes down with his mental health issues, retires during training camp. So, you know, and then Thayer plays out of position at guard. But what are your thoughts on Justin Fry going forward and what we could expect out of the offensive line and offensive line recruiting?
Well, one, I'm not convinced the line improved from 2021 to 2022. Having said that, it was a good offensive line in 2020, a really good offensive line in 2022. And I always believe in, you know, you are what your record says you are. So Justin Fry is the coach. The line was good. He deserves the credit, and that's the way it works. And I think that's great. I think Justin's got to recruit better, and he's got to recruit nationally. And he can't just settle for kids from Ohio because kids from Ohio. While I love lines from Ohio, and I can point to two national championship lines being, you know, almost exclusively guys from Ohio. You know, in the year 2023 and beyond, you need to have national guys to be able to sprinkle in there to augment these lines. And I think he's got to demonstrate that he can do it. But I think, you know, he's done a good job. I know the kids like him. I know that the room's energetic, and that's why when all this stuff started coming down about the line in 2023, I'm just like, man, I'm just not worried about it. I think we got guys. I think Justin can get the job done. He's got the raw material, and what's really shown me is, you know, how aggressively, you know, they've gone out on the portal on this stuff because, you know, on the portal with Kingston, and we talked about this last night, but Kingston wanted to be guaranteed he was starting, and Ohio State viewed him as a right tackle and told him so. They said he wouldn't be a left tackle, but he could be a right tackle, but he'd have to come in. He wouldn't be guaranteed the spot. He'd have to come in and earn it. And Kingston really wanted to have a guarantee, which I understand, that he'd be the starter. And to me, that's an indication that Justin likes the guys in the room, likes his players. And, you know, now that Matt Jones is back, boy, we've got a lot of experience on the line. And I think it went from being I knew it was going to be a good line to now I really know it's going to be a good line. And Justin Fry's a big part of that. So I give him a lot of the credit.
Well, I think that with him, he's a nice player, but, you know, he was honorable mention all Pac-12. And again, the Pac-12 isn't the SEC when it comes to offensive line talent right now. So, you know, is he better than Josh Fryer? I don't know. I mean, if DeJuan didn't exist last year and Josh Fryer started at right tackle, I mean, is Josh second team All Big Ten? Probably. I mean, because, you know, the one game he played in, he played really well. And I think that when you started a team like Ohio State, you're on a prolific offense. It kind of, you know, the high tide raises all boats, basically, where it's like, you know, okay, Ohio State's the number 1 offense in the country. So, you know, we got to make the left tackle All Big Ten. Luke Whippler's All Big Ten. You know, that's like Suds last year. We had six guys made All Big Ten honors, which has never happened in the history of football, where the 6th man actually got named honorable mention All Big Ten. Matt Jones was honorable mention All Big Ten, and he didn't even start. He might have started like a couple games, but that just doesn't happen. So, you know, but I think when you're on a really fantastic high-flying offense, then you get that extra boost in the postseason award circuit. And I think that if Josh Fryer would have started last year, he probably would have been second team All Big Ten, like DeJuan was, you know. So I think that you're going to have two tackles that are all Big Ten caliber with Josh and Donnie. I think that Matt's going to be an all Big Ten caliber type center. I think that the only guy that I think is going to be in front of him is probably the kid from Michigan that just transferred in because he's a Remington finalist, and again they got another Remington finalist in the portal, which is amazing. And then Penn State's got a really good left tackle, but otherwise we're going to be right there. And again, you guys got to remember we don't play Georgia every week. We play Georgia if we get to the finals or the semifinals of the playoffs, but. We're playing Indiana, Rutgers. We're not playing like juggernauts every week. So there's going to be time for these guys to mesh. There's going to be time for these guys to grow. And I think that we're going to be fine on the offensive line. I really think that we've got really good talent. I think these guys are going to be excited. They actually get to play. Because nobody goes to Ohio State to watch. Everyone that's there, they want to be the starter. They want to be the man. And now there's a lot of open spots on that line. And these guys, I said to someone really high up in the Woody Hayes, I said, look, when I was competing for a spot in 04, I was like the Exorcist. All I wanted was to take that spot. It's the only thing you got to be obsessed with because, the spots don't come open every year. Like when you have Paris Johnson in front of you, there's nothing you can really do to beat him out if you want to be the left tackle. You might be able to shift down to guard, center, but, there's 2 open tackle spots, 2 open guard spots. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, I can imagine DJ and Matt are going to both be in ink, starting somewhere. Josh Harris probably in pencil starting at right tackle, I'd imagine. But there's big opportunity. And I always love when there's these kind of open derbies going on in spring ball because these kids are going to be sharp, man, because they want to start. I'm telling you don't want to get beat out by a guy younger than you or whatever the scenario is. Because if you get beat out by a guy that's younger than you, then you're probably never going to play at Ohio State. So it's going to be fascinating. I think it's going to be the position group to watch in the spring. And we're going to have very, very in-depth coverage when it comes to that position. What other questions are we getting? Any news on the development of Zen Mikulski and George Fitzpatrick? I think Zen is a guy to watch. He's the guy that he lettered this year, played spot duty. He's a big kid. I think he's kind of raw. I think he has to get a little meaner, honestly. But I think he's got a lot of tools. He's got great length. He was kind of a late bloomer. But a lot of offensive linemen are late bloomers, and got a real opportunity. Again, if you want to play in Ryan Day's offense on the offensive line, you have to be able to pass protect. That's what it's going to come down to for these tackles. And if you put a gun to my head and I got to make sure I don't give him a sack, I'm putting Donnie Jackson left tackle and Josh Hart right tackle. But I will happily take Zen at left if he can manage to pass protect at a high level and put Donnie at left guard. And then I think you have a really fantastic side with Matt Jones in the middle. Nevada, your thoughts on Zen and George Fitzpatrick? George is a kid, he's young, missed some time. I think he's got a lot of work to do to get into the rotation. But again, when these spots are open, it's kind of interesting to see what guys step up to the front. Super athletic kid. I loved his tape in high school. In fact, I'm actually going to put it on. But your thoughts on those guys, Nevada?
Well, I always, for me, I'm always listening for what names are kind of hearing out of practice, what names are you hearing out of the weight room. And those are 2 guys you're hearing about. Those 2 guys are kind of be putting into the dude category. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. So I'm really bullish on both those guys. And I think those guys will both end up being players for us by the time that they leave Ohio State. I kind of gotten a similar response yesterday, with Padilla and Searwald when they hit the campus. Man, the guys in the weight room were impressed. They're like, these are grown blank men. These were big boys, and there's 2 other guys that are going to be in the mix right from the beginning. Then you've got Tegra, who's another guy who's going to be right in the mix for thing. I mean, you've got a lot of guys that are competing for some spots, but no, I like both of them. I like both of them a lot, and I think both of them will end up starting games at Ohio State before they leave. I really do.
It's funny. So I got this. So this is a little look at winter conditioning. This is they call them mat drills, and these are terrible. They got the wood sled, they got the low sled. It's basically like a mental toughness conditioning. Break you off. There's Julian Fleming doing tug of war. There's JT. It's funny because we did these in 2012 with Urban, and literally like half the drills that we did got banned by the NCAA because they were so nasty. I mean, we did some stuff that was like, I was like, man, I don't know if that's legal or if we've got insurance for it, but I hope we do. But it was kind of separate the wheat from the chaff at that point. But these things suck. These are going to start up in 2 weeks where they just start breaking these guys off. Usually it's 5:45 a.m. when you start up, and it's funny. These guys, they all wear these harnesses so that you can track their. It's weird because it kind of looks like a sports bra. You see Kyle McCord wearing it, but it's a Zephyr, they call it, and it tracks your movement, your strides, your top speed. You get like this analytic printout report that most of the teams are using now. So you see all these guys wearing those shirts. But yeah, it's a tough gig. Like, these things suck. Usually the worst part of the year is when you do these, because it's a lot harder to go out at night, when you've got to be up at 4 a.m. to go work out. But these guys, this is kind of where the sausage is made, so to speak. People don't want to see that. You see G. Scott pushing the wood sled. You see, that's our boy just went to Cincinnati. Nico Pizzetti just went to Cincinnati to be the head strength coach for Scott Satterfield. So congrats, Nico. We got the Aerodyne bikes, but yeah, this is pretty G-rated to the stuff that we dealt with Urban the first year, because we had a drill that was crazy, where literally it was like two guys on a mat, and it was like a 10-yard long mat, and the one guy would be down on his stomach doing like an army crawl, and then there was a guy that was like standing up, and you'd blow the whistle, and the guy who's standing would literally is allowed to do anything to keep you from reaching the 10 yards. So, I mean, you're like pulling the guy, pushing him back. We had a player punch a guy in the back of the head, knock him out cold. I mean, it was like, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be, I can't wait for the book on this one. I just saw a kid get socked because, we basically said, do whatever it takes. And there's some guys that took that literally because they just didn't want to lose. So they literally just knocked the guy out cold, and then all of a sudden you don't lose. So that got banned, believe it or not. But that first year when we were changing the culture, man, it was wild. Nevada, any other final thoughts? I think I got some, put a little Luke Montgomery on because he's in now. I think Luke's got a big opportunity because I think he's got the athleticism to play. Be interesting to see. I know he's going to start off at tackle per Justin Fry. I think he's got an opportunity to play left or right. I would probably try him out at right. But he played guard at the All-American game. But any final thoughts as we wrap this up? What else we got? We got who's the kicker next year? Parker Lewis. I could see it being Parker Lewis. I think that's obviously a position that we need to improve on. He's kind of a different kid. He got kicked off the team at USC, so I don't know how reliable he is. But it'll be interesting to see what we get out of the kicker position. All right, this is a great question. I'm going to go to the okay, outside of the Penn State performance, I don't think JT has been as anticipated. Nevada, we were talking about this. The JT Penn State game was kind of like a severe outlier. What do you think needs to happen with JT and Jack Sawyer to take that next step?
Well, I just think they just got to become juniors. I think with JT, what you see it all the time in college football. You see guys that play and they're good, or they're kind of good or whatever, and then all of a sudden they jump up and they're superhuman. And we've seen this on other teams. You talked about Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson, for most of his career at Michigan, was just a guy, and then he became Super Hutchinson and became one of the top picks in the draft and making millions of dollars playing for the Lions. Well, with JT, I think we're just seeing flashes. I mean, I think the logical progression for him is from guy that does the Penn State game occasionally to guy that does the Penn State game frequently. And if that happens, watch out. And I expect a similar trajectory for Jack Sawyer. So no, I just think it's maturation. It comes with age. It comes with experience. Chase Young had a very similar, kind of experience at Ohio State. So no, I'm expecting big things. I think the Penn State game was kind of a glimpse of what kind of a glimpse of his top end. But I think we're going to see his top end more frequently, and that's going to be the big story of the 2023 defense in JT Tuimoloau.
All right, so this is and I agree with that. I think that JT's kind of on. I don't think he's going to have the top end of Chase, where he has to be the number 2 pick. But Chase as a sophomore was good, but he wasn't out of this world like he was in 19 when he was a junior. I mean, his junior year, he was maybe the best pass rushing year I've ever seen at Ohio State. Excuse me, haven't seen anything like it since. Nevada, better tandem. Paris Johnson and DeWand or Mewhort and Decker in 2013. That is tough because I think that if because here's the hard part. So Jack was a 5th-year senior. Taylor Decker was a true sophomore. I assume you mean in 2013 because you can't advance it to Taylor Decker senior year or Mewhort senior year versus Paris and DeWand, who Paris is a 3rd-year guy, DeWand's a 4th-year guy. And they're both coming out the same year. I think that for this year, it's probably Paris and DeWand. It was better than Mewhort and Decker. And I love Taylor and I love Jack. And I coached those guys and spent a lot of time with both those guys. Taylor was a kid that I developed heavily his freshman year. But I think it's got to be Paris and DeWand because Paris is going to be a top 10 pick. DeWand will probably be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. I think Taylor was good in 2013. I thought Jack was an All-American, but Jack went 2nd round, was a guard. I probably have to go with Paris and DeWand, but I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird because those guys both, those 2 teams. It's funny you bring up that 2013 team. That's the last time we lost 2 games in a row was 2013, and we did it to end this season 2022 with Michigan and Georgia. So I got to go with Paris and DeWand just because I think that their cumulative talent and their output this year is higher than Mewhort and Decker's was that year. Now, Taylor's $80 million left tackle for the Detroit Lions. He's had a fantastic season. Fringe type Pro Bowl guy at left tackle. Jack obviously had his career cut short with a knee injury, but he was a 2nd round pick, rookie starting in the NFL, really played well. I think he would have been a big 2nd contract guy until his knee gave out on him. So I don't know. That's kind of a toss up. But what are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Yeah, I'd go with Paris and DeWand as well. But I want to make a point because I was thinking about this, and we were talking about this earlier. But I was thinking about the 2014 line, 2013 line. The 2014-15 line when we won the national championship, the only returning starter we had on that line was Taylor Decker. I think you mentioned Pat Elflein might have gotten a random start the year before against Michigan State or something like that. But virtually, we were returning a line that had 3 guys that had never played before. I mean, Jacoby Bourne, Billy Price, Darrell Baldwin. I don't think it ever started games before at Ohio State. Ended up winning the national championship with a line like that. So, again, bringing it back to this year, you've got a line where you've got 4 guys that have started games at Ohio State returning. Kind of an embarrassment of riches. But yeah, that last national championship line, you had Taylor Decker and 4 question marks, and that turned out pretty well.
Well, yeah, and again, in terms of question marks at quarterback that year, Braxton's the Heisman favorites. Shoulder falls out of the socket out for the year. JT steps in, does great, breaks his leg against Michigan. Cardale. So, I mean, in college football, man, anything can happen. So, I don't think that, there was if I would have set odds after that Virginia Tech loss, well, I know what the odds were. Cause I was literally in Vegas when they played the Cincinnati Bearcats. Ohio State on the big board in Vegas to win the national championship that year was 75-1 after leading into that Cincinnati game after the Virginia Tech loss. Cause you got to remember Virginia Tech beat us and then they tanked. They lost to East Carolina the next week. I mean, that was a bad Virginia Tech team. They ended up being, 5-7 or whatever. They weren't one of the Sugar Bowl really good Virginia Tech teams. They stunk, so that it really amplified how bad of a loss that was in 2014 to those guys at home. But that's why I think we've got as good a shot as any. I mean, Georgia's going to have to replenish. They're going to have to replace their quarterback. I'm sure they're going to be fantastic again next year, but it's going to be the usual suspects next year. We're going to have to go through Georgia, have to go through Bama to win the big ring, and there's no reason we can't do it. When you go to bed at night and you realize you got Marvin Harrison and Mecca, Trey Henderson as your top 3 skill guys, and then you look at your depth with Julian X, Jade, and then you got these freshmen coming in. You got Cade Stover, Joe Royer, Jelani Thurman. I mean, that's as deep as I've ever seen. So whoever's the quarterback, it ain't gonna. If he's not successful, it's just gonna be because he stinks. It's not because he doesn't have the infrastructure. The O-line will be fine. We'll be able to gen it up in pass protection, protect the guys that maybe can't protect. But I think our two tackles will be really good pass blockers. I really do. And I'm not to say that to make you guys feel better. If I thought they stunk, I'd tell you. But I really think that Josh Fry's gonna have a nice year. And Donnie Jackson was first team All Big Ten last year. So put your best player at left tackle. Put your 6-year guy, likely captain Matt Jones at center, and let the chips fall where they may. And I think we feel really good about it. So Nevada, we are hitting an hour. I know you have a hard stop. What anything you want to close this one out with tonight? Appreciate all you guys being on here. We always love talking to you guys. You guys are fantastic on here. So appreciate you, Paul Buckeye. We're thinking about your brother. We were praying for you. I got your note. Thinking about you, big dog. Nevada, any thoughts to wrap this thing up?
Not just excited about the early enrollees. Excited about all the kids coming in, and we got some big announcements coming with Lathan Ransom, with Tommy Eichenberg. Hopefully, we get a couple of expected good newses, and that would certainly solidify things on the defense and really position us further for 2023. So big things happening here over the next 24, 48 hours. Stay tuned, and we'll see everybody at BuckeyeScoop.com on the message board.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate you guys. As always, thank you for tuning in with us. We are enjoying doing these in the offseason. There's been new news popping nonstop. But if you guys enjoy this content, you guys really got to try BuckeyeScoop.com. It is a fantastic experience. The best premium experience for the Ohio State fan. If you're already a member, consider recommending us to your friends, because the more the merrier. We have such a great board. Spent a lot of time on there. Some of the best people you'll ever get to know are on that board, and it's really a fun time. And we also have the best information. So if you guys really want to know what's going on inside the Woody Hayes, BuckeyeScoop.com is your spot, because that's what we do. We work hard. We grind to make sure you guys know everything first, because that is what you guys deserve. So I appreciate you guys tonight. Thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed this, please leave us a like. Subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you guys as always. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps enhance the searches for people to find this podcast. I think that it's been growing like crazy. It's all because of you guys spreading the word, liking the content, subscribing to the content. It gets recommended to more people. It hits the algorithm wave, and it really is huge for us. So thank you guys for supporting us. We appreciate you guys so much. I'm going to go get on BuckeyeScoop.com for the rest of the night. Love to have you guys join us on there. Hope you guys are doing great. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Hopefully get some good news on Tommy Eichenberg tomorrow. I got a good hunch for that. So hope you guys have a good one. See you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.